In boys, the testes in the penis develop, which produces sperms, and in girls, the ovaries enlarge and eggs begin to mature. These things I have already discussed with you in the main classes, in the live classes. But here again I am giving a short revision. Maturity, the most important term of today's century, which many of you do not have, and that is called maturity. Some people are more mature, some people are less mature, but maturity is very, very, very important at this particular stage. It tells us how to behave, it tells us how to believe, it tells us, it makes us mature and helps us to react to certain circumstances and adaptations. We have mental maturity, we have intellectual maturity, we have emotional maturity. Mental maturity means the brain has the greatest capacity for learning. The brain helps us to think, the brain helps us to grow, the brain helps us to know which is good and which is bad for us. Then we have intellectual maturity, means the person's way of thinking changes. He has an independent way of thinking as to what he has to particularly do at that particular situation. So the change in a person's way of thinking is intellectual maturity, and the person feels more independent than before and becomes self-conscious. Or we have a self-discovery in ourselves, which creates intellectual maturity. Then we have emotional maturity. Now sometimes what happens, a person is left alone, so certain changes occurs in his body and mind. Now he should not feel insecure at that time. He will be strong enough to rebuild that. That is called emotional maturity. How much you are emotionally attached, or how much you can overcome your emotions, that is called emotional maturity. So mental maturity is related to your brain, capacity of learning. Intellectual maturity is related to your way of becoming self-consciousness and self-discovery. Whereas emotional maturity is related with how much effect or how much you can react to your emotions. One of the again changes in puberty. So these are some of the secondary sexual characters, different characters in our body which happens. Boys, they begin to grow facial hair. There is a mustache and the beard. The hairs begin to grow on the chest, under the arms, and under the thighs, or the different public or private regions. In the girls, breasts begin to develop. Hairs begin to grow on the chest, under the arms, and region of the thighs. So sometimes this is more. The growth of hairs in girls is more than the growth of hairs in boys in some cases, which means the sexual characters in those girls are more inevitable than the boys. So I can have a question here from this particular part. Vijay and Rani are brother and sister. After a certain age they attained, Vijay saw that he has started to grow his mustache, his beard, and suddenly his voice is becoming more and more hoarse. Whereas Rani saw that suddenly her breasts started to get developed and her waist is becoming wider. Question number 1. Are these changes normal? Question number 2. If they are normal, then why such kindness are being observed? Question number 3. What are the age, or what is the age after which these changes are observed? So this is the question I gave. So in secondary sexual characters, the boys grow different types of characteristics: hair, mustache, beard, everything. And in girls, the breasts begin to develop and the ovary starts to release eggs and it will become more and more mature, and the waist, the region behind the waist also becomes wider. So students, in fact I can